He's on TV.
I'm with Kurt and Derek.
What is this?
We are.
Yeah.
You don't subscribe? You need to subscribe.
Yes, we are podcasting.
Interesting.
That's actually,
So
What do you not do that in the Hamptons? Wow, she's just like you, Dave.
You guys are so bougie up there.
Yeah, we really are.
All right, well, we got to get back to work. We're trying to make some money.
Okay, you guys have fun with your podcast.
Love you.
I said so sarcasm.
Hey, you're out of the will. Just saying.
You still a little bit of sarcasm still, right? Right there. Right there.
I will.
Love you.
Love you too. Bye.
Bye. Hey everybody, welcome to episode 2 of Bourbon Boys. I'm here with my good buddies Alton,
Good to see you, brother.
Derek,
welcome back.
and we decided to invite Kurt back for another round.
Hey, thanks.
So, looking forward to spending some time here just chatting and also covering a couple of new bourbons that we've not talked about yet. So, we're going to taste 1792 Full Proof Edition, Clyde May, and then Blade and Bow.
Sounds good.
Sounds great.
That's a good lineup.
Yeah.
Looking forward to it. As you know, Bourbon Boys is a place where guys get together and talk about bourbon, talk about life, and all the 4 or 5 P's that come along with it. So,
I think we're up to like 18 P's.
I'm keeping track.
All right.
It's going
I've
to be a
lost track.
big T-shirt.
Will be a big T-shirt.
Yep.
All right. So our first one up tonight is, Kurt, you want to take the first one? 1792.
Sure.
All right.
So, so this is kind of a funny story, as you guys know, because I thought this was really special because I brought it back with me on a trip I was on when, in fact, we had already had it. Although they're different. So this is the Full Proof. I think the other one that we had was, I don't know exactly what it was, but I know it had a different band on it, so it had to be different. So I'm just gonna go with that.
Okay.
It's kind of like
It had a goal.
I pick my wine, right? It's whatever the label looks like. I'm like, that looks good. So
I remember you were pretty excited about it. I think that the text flurry that came around was like, you know, hey, have you tried the 1792? And the
Yeah.
joke was, yes, we did last week.
yeah,
like
and I
that's
think
my
you
name.
brought it.
Yeah.
So,
You
So-
now own 2.
so that must just be the
That's
age
okay.
thing.
That's all right.
But it's a cool story. I mean, I think so. It was officially, I think. Well, I don't know if it was started, but it was John D. Willett, I think his name is. He was a bourbon aristocrat, as they called him, and in 1876, he actually transferred the ownership of it over to Willett and Frankie Distillery. To his son-in-laws. So they ran it together probably for about 5 years, and then one of the son-in-laws sold out, and the other actually ran it for 5 more decades until they actually had to close their doors because of Prohibition.
Dang.
Yeah. And so what's interesting about it, though, is that the distillery today, the 1972 Barton Distillery, or Barton 1792 Distillery, actually operates on the exact same site that they were on when they actually closed their doors because of Prohibition. So a really long history, which I think is pretty cool. And of course, you know, they go into some of the details on how they make it, but the single barrel, which is what this is, and the Full Proof actually is made from mash, they say, of 75% corn, 15% rye, and 10% barley. So
So it's going to be on the sweeter side.
it is
probably.
going to be on the sweeter side, at least that's what they say. So so they're saying it adds some notes of butterscotch. It has kind of this roasted nuts hint to it, as well as they call it kind of a more complex, full-bodied whiskey, and I probably would agree with that. I think it's one of those where you have to taste it 3 times, like we talked about last week. But after the grains are harvested, they're mash fermented before they actually are distilled in a copper pot still. So it starts in a copper pot still, and then they actually transfer it to the barrels.
Okay.
And it actually distills for 8 years. So actually, the Full Proof actually distills for about 8.5 years. So, so it has a little bit of a sweetness to it. The palate has a little bit of caramel to it. There is a hint of vanilla, so maybe that's why I like it, because I seem to like every bourbon that has vanilla in it. So I don't know if that's a trend. But it does have a little bit of a bite to it because of the rye.
Yep.
And so what I'm curious about is that if it sits for a bit, like, will that, settle so there's not as much of. So
Give it a shot.
They have done some other foolproof editions, which have sold extremely well. So obviously they're hoping that this one does the same. But like I said, this one was aged for about 8.5 years, and it has a really pleasant, sweet taste to it. But again, it has a little bit of a nip to it due to the rye. So,
Yeah, the end corks. I mean, it smells really good.
Yeah.
It does.
All
And
right.
what'd you say was the rye percent in it?
The rye is, I think, 15%. Yeah,
Okay.
it's about 10% barley, and the remaining is corn.
Okay.
So
All right, let's give it a shot.
give it a shot.
The judges say
That's pretty. That's
It's
really
good.
good.
very
Yeah.
smooth.
It's good.
Very smooth. First sip, good.
You can definitely taste it. I think it's...
I'm taking mine with
So I let it sit a little bit.
one rock. Yeah, that second sip is it's warm. It's got it's got a good sweet. It's not sicky sweet. I don't get the heavy sweet vanilla like maybe in a TX. But I definitely get that clean vanilla finish. It's got a little bite at the end.
Yeah.
I like it. All right, not bad. Not bad. What does this go for per bottle?
I think the full proof is around $45.
That's not bad.
Yeah.
I was so excited about it, even look at the price.
I think you're excited.
I could have paid $100 for this and not even known it.
I think you're excited about the smuggling challenge.
I think the smuggling challenge is the best part, right? I had to go to FedEx and get a bag and bubble wrap to put this thing in my check-in bag. So
Yeah. I've done that once. That's not going to work out so well at some point, but
if you wrap it good.
yeah.
So
I like it.
the funny part was I kept going inside the FedEx store and saying, "Do you have more bubble wrap?" And I kept going out to my car to wrap it in the trunk. So I'm sure he was wondering what the hell I had in my trunk. So,
I love it.
yeah, it was good.
All right, not bad. I like it. It's a good start.
Yeah.
Good start. When did you first have this? Did you have it outside of BourbonBoys?
No.
Okay.
No,
So just on
so
the
it was-
list of.
Yeah, well, it wasn't really on the list, but I was in Wisconsin actually, and Total Wine there actually sells bourbon, which
Yep.
they don't here, and they had a whole bunch of different bourbons there. Of course, this one obviously is not different, i.e., we had it already, but the full proof we have never had. But I think so I bought it up there on a business trip, and it was probably back in February, March.
Yeah. If I remember correctly, that first one was good too.
Yeah, the first one I was about to say I think it had a gold band on it.
It did.
To your point, I wasn't a big fan at first, but by the time I got about a third of the way through the bottle, it was really starting to resonate with me.
Anything tastes good after the third.
And actually,
third
that
of
was
the bottle.
actually two settings.
Yeah,
not,
you can
not
ask me that about that one. So-
Exactly. Yeah.
I like it. All right. Well, that takes us into our first commercial break.
Commercial break.
There we go. All right, so we're back from the break. We just tried the 1792 special edition, full. What was it? Full strength.
Full proof.
Full
proof.
Yeah.
Full proof.
Not foolproof.
Yeah.
Full proof.
Yeah.
And we're up to the next one. Next one we have on the slate is.
It's going to be Clyde Mays. And as we look at these two bottles, talk about a contrast in style. The 1792 is a more, I guess, modern look,
Yeah, does feel
a
it.
little more decorated, where you got Clyde May, very nostalgic bottle shape, and the label, very, very much a throwback, which is what actually drew me to that originally.
Yeah, it's got a
almost-
good look.
It's almost identical to TX, actually.
Yeah, the shape of the bottle.
The shape of the bottle, yeah.
Yep.
And then the 1792's got maybe more of a cognac shaped bottle. It's a little
Yeah.
fancier French.
Yeah, kind
Looking-
of Crown Royalish.
Yep. Perfume.
I like it that too, of a perfume bottle.
Yeah.
It does. It's a scaled up. That would be very expensive. Very expensive perfume bottle.
or
It's a
very cheap.
BFPB.
All right, so Clyde Mays. So what do you got? What'd you
So
learn?
Clyde May, this is, like I said, it's a pretty nostalgic looking bottle, nice label. This is the second time I've had it. A friend of mine actually gave me both bottles, or different friends gave me the 2 bottles. So this one is a gift, so I always appreciate that.
As do we.
Gifts
As
taste
do we.
better.
Gifts taste better.
They do,
Especially
right?
from a
Right.
good-
Especially
from a
if there's
good
somebody
guy.
else's gifts.
Yeah.
There you go.
Especially from a good guy. But so Clyde May, this is the straight bourbon whiskey. A lot of folks that I started talking to, I wasn't familiar with it before, but who are familiar with it, he's got under this label an Alabama kind of original that is I think it's just a whiskey, not a bourbon, with more of an apple flavor that I think is where he really got his foothold
Okay.
in the business. But interesting backstory. So Clyde May was an actual person. He was born in the 1920s, around 1922, I believe. Grew up in the Depression era. Went off to the war in 1942. I think around 46, he was injured and discharged. Came back, I think, to Alabama to run the family farm. He was I guess, an average farmer at best. Never mastered that, but apparently he was really damn good at making spirits. So
That is a talent.
that is a talent, and we're thankful that he did. So he stayed on the edge of the law with that. So
That's true.
Yeah, very much so. One of the things I read said between 1950 and 1980, they estimated he would put out about 300 gallons a week.
Dang.
Holy crap.
That's a lot of,
Dang.
so
That's a lot of fake farming.
that's a lot of fake farming. So it got him in trouble a couple of times. He did a little
It's
bit
like cleaning money.
yeah, well, in 73, he actually ended up doing about 8 months
Oh,
of time.
okay.
So he was good at running. He wasn't great at it, apparently. So
Got slower.
he got slower, got caught. But when he passed away in 1990, his son, kind of as a tribute to him, pursued starting to legally bottle what his dad had created. So
Nice.
In
awesome.
1990. I love that.
That is awesome.
I know that seems like yesterday.
It's like
doesn't
safe,
it? So,
safe enough distance.
Exactly.
yeah, one of their lines I read was distilled since 1946, legal since 2001.
That's
so, okay.
That
I
is
wonder
great.
if he paid taxes.
Better
That is great.
late, better late than never. It's
Yes,
very,
admit nothing.
yeah, it's really good. I like it. It's very smooth. The mash on it's 78% corn, 12% rye, and 10% barley.
All right, so
So-
that should be even sweeter,
Yeah.
perhaps, than the 1792.
Yeah. The other thing they called out, which I thought was interesting, and you can kind of taste it, is they call out that it's stored in heavily charred barrels. So you don't char the inside of the barrels. Just apparently they go a little longer with that, so probably get a little more richness, a little more
Yeah.
woody out of
Okay,
it.
Which, in contrast to this, these go into brand new barrels.
the 1792.
Yeah, the 1792 does. Yeah, sorry, I'm pointing to this, but nobody knows what I'm pointing
we
to.
can see it. We got you, Kurt.
Yeah.
Okay.
So let's give it a try.
Yeah.
I mean, again, it's average farmer, hell of a spirit maker, so thank God he stayed
But
with
I
that.
always think about, so let me see that bottle for a second, Derek.
Not a very loud uncork.
It's not. You need to pull it up. There you go. So every time you say the name,
Clyde May.
yeah, so it's like a Western, not a thief, but
Yeah, Bonnie and Clyde.
Bonnie and Clyde. That's what I think about every time I hear the name of this stuff, I think of Bonnie and Clyde. Clyde May.
Yeah, it does have like a sweet smell to it.
Yeah.
So do you think that's him on the bottle?
That's him.
That's
There's
so cool.
Several pictures of him on the website.
It is Prison Grays.
No, by the mailbox.
Waiting for the check.
Yeah.
So where are they? So it's in Alabama.
Yeah.
It
Distillery?
is. That's a good point, though. It's actually distilled in Kentucky and bottled in Florida. So
Okay.
the Alabama roots only got them so far.
Just roots.
Yep, just roots.
Okay.
So maybe is that where it started? Was crafted in Alabama?
Yes.
I love the nostalgic pictures on it.
Yeah. I do want to try the straight Alabama, the Alabama style. So it is.
What do you think?
Not bad. First sip, it's got a little burn to it. for having less rye in it, I think it's got more. At least on my palate, taste. I get a little bit more burn than the 1792.
Really?
Definitely sweet, warms it up. I'm waiting for that charred.
Yeah.
I'm not getting a whole lot of the char. I don't know what I get for flavors. What do you taste, Kurt?
I'm definitely picking up on the barrel.
You get? All right.
I am. This doesn't have as much bite to it. So if I just hold it on my tongue for a bit, like I can feel the 1792. Like it's almost like my tongue's getting cold from it's not, right?
Yep.
And this feels a lot more how do I want to describe it? Like it's got a thickness to it almost. Like
It's pretty smooth.
it is really smooth. Yeah,
Yeah.
maybe that's a better way to describe it. But
It's about I think say $35, $38 bottle. So it's not a bad bottle.
Not
It's
bad.
it's
Not
out of
bad.
the mainstream, so it's a good conversation starter.
Yep.
A little less available in this area. The guy who gave it to me is down in Charlotte. I think went down in South Carolina and picked that up.
Okay.
92
good one
proof.
to add to the
It's good.
cabinet.
So you mentioned the list before.
Mm.
We started the list, not the of the remember the wish list of bourbons to try to look for.
Yep.
So we need to update that and make that available on the website.
Yeah, no, that's a good call.
Yeah.
That's a good call. And if anyone wants to contribute to helping us achieve the list,
Yes.
send it in.
Or
Yeah,
at least
totally.
point out some new
For sure.
new stuff for us to
Yeah.
try.
Yep. Happy to try more.
I like the saying on here: "Say what you be what you say."
Keeping it simple.
Keeping it simple.
Keeping it real.
Here's to Clyde.
Here's to Clyde.
I like it.
Yeah, it's good.
I'm glad Clyde chose not to be a farmer.
Yes. Yeah,
And,
this turned out much better for us.
Yep. Followed his passion, I would say.
Yeah.
Seemed to be pretty good at that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's interesting. I wonder how much of that honestly was driven by what he really enjoyed versus what he was good at.
Yeah.
Mm.
And I got to think at that time, and that, I mean, think about Great Depression, Dust Bowl, farming, that was probably not an easy conversation to have with the parent folks.
If he had it at all.
If he had it at all, this is true.
I'll be on the back 40
Sure.
today.
Yes, I'll take the faraway acres.
I'm gonna go pick the corn.
Yeah, yeah. But I mean, think of having to make that decision to say, I'm really good at something that perhaps you didn't want me to be.
Yeah.
And I think we all want that for our kids too, which is, do what you're excited about.
Yeah.
And it may not be the path that you would have thought of. I don't know, Dave. What do you think, David?
You guys ever? I don't know. This goes way back. Conversation I had with my father when I was finished undergrad, and massive recession. I seem to be lucky enough to graduate from any kind of education right in the middle of a recession. But I was finished school. My wife at that time, my girlfriend, was living in Boston. And,
I was like, wife at that time. What's this all about?
my wife.
We
now
do
my
need
girlfriend
Sarah.
at that time. Yeah, but Sarah was in Boston, Berklee College of Music, and I was staying at home, couldn't find a job. Believe it or not, I actually had money in the bank, and went to my dad, and it's like, hey, Sarah really wants me to move to Boston. And he said, well, what are you going to do? I was like, well, the North Bennett Street School is up there.
Yeah.
And North Bennett Street School is a fine woodworking, instrument making, bookbinding school, like old master trade kind of stuff. And, at that point I was doing a lot of woodworking, and my dad, was like, well, Dave Rue, that's a great vocation, but it certainly isn't an occupation. And that stuck with me for a long time, and it's one of those things you mentioned, the decisions you make 10 years back are very different than the ones that you do now. And so, Sarah and I often talk about what would have happened if I had just told Dad, forget it, I'm going to go. I'm going to follow my passion, right?
Yep.
No kids, no wife, just a girlfriend.
10 years ago?
Well, no, it was much more than that. But
Okay.
anyways,
Just checking.
would have gone up there. She would have finished at Berkeley. I probably would have finished at North Bennett Street. And then who knows where we would have been. And so I always go back and kind of replay that in my head. And I took a left instead of a right. And I sometimes wonder, it's like we're wired certain ways. And for me, I'm wired to work with my hands. And that's not what I do to put food on the table. And often what I do to put food on the table, I'm so damn tired by the weekend comes on that I don't do
what
I
are
was
super passionate
wired
about.
to do.
We have a
and
fifth
work with
P.
my hands. So, anyways, I mean, I do
Pooped?
Passions.
pooped.
Seriously, people.
Passion, yeah.
Passion.
Yeah.
So I think, that is one thing that, as you get older and you start, Lord knows, talking about retirement, and for me, it's always that struggle. I don't want to wait until then to have the time to be able to do what I truly love doing. And apparently years ago, I didn't have the balls to stand up and say, you know what, I am going to go after this and do something that I feel like I was truly wired to do professionally.
Right.
But again, you make the choices you make. And
So one of the things that's been liberating about the changes that sometimes are forced upon us is you get more than one shot at that. Yeah, that played out the way it did at that time.
right.
But, again, as we contemplate the turns in our life, the choices we made, sometimes we get another shot at it.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
so it's one of the things, again, that I like bouncing off you guys or sharing from my experiences is, there's good perspective.
Right.
And I keep saying perspective, but nobody offers to make that a P. But I'm
You
not.
can make that
I'm,
a
I'm,
P.
I'm not. Yeah, I'm not.
I think we're going to have a T-shirt pretty soon with all the P words.
all the P words.
Right.
Jeez.
We just
But but anyway, that's just one of the the things in this storyline is that perspective of change is not as scary as it
Right.
as it once felt like it was.
right.
I think there's truth to that, right? I mean, I think we probably can all relate to this in some degree. I worked since I was 16. When I stepped out and took that break, right? That was really uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But I think you learn that. I think the greatest thing that I learned, right, in this last 2 years, year and a half, is that everything works out, right? It really does. Everything works out.
Yeah.
So
Well, we're trained from that point when you're 16 and working that the next step has always got to be up, right?
yeah,
Right.
Yeah.
And that's how we were wired. That's how we're educated, and there's
Yep.
nothing wrong with that.
yeah.
But at some point, it's awesome to get the opportunity to be
Step aside.
step aside, whether it's your choice or others, and say, "Oh
Right.
wow, there's other ways to do this. There's other things that matter." So
Yeah.
There was I'll have to look up the name of the book, but it may have been the book Fish.
Okay.
I mean, it's like
PH.
A weird, yeah. Not PH
Another
yet.
P word.
Could be.
No, it's
I think it was just the word fish, but I'll have to check it out. And it's a story about an executive who goes into, and I found this. I was in a
I've
job.
read it.
You've read it, and tell me if this is the right book. I was going for a job interview. Had been recently laid off 2 weeks before Christmas, 2008. So bottom of the bottom.
Merry Christmas, Derek.
Yep. And I was in a job interview shortly after that, and in the waiting room, flipping through a bunch of business magazines, and came across this article, and it was the story of the woman, I believe, in the book. And if this is the right book, let me know.
Okay.
The story goes that she was in the fish market in Seattle, and there was a saying. She was watching the fish market early in the morning, and she was watching the teams
At
throw
Pike's. It was
at
at
Pike's
Pike's,
Place.
Pike's
Yeah.
Place Market, yeah.
and she's watching the salmon being thrown around.
Yep.
And they're just winging these 30, 40-pound fish over each other from stall to stall. And there was a sign above one of the booths, and it said, if failing was impossible, what would you do? And that stuck with me, which is, what are the reasons why you're afraid to do something? And when she went up to that booth, she went back a few mornings in a row, and she was like, I'm really struck by this sign. And the guy said, yeah, this is what I want to do. I wanted to do this, and I was on a different path, but my passion wasn't there, and this is really what I wanted to do. So we asked her, and she was stumped. She didn't know if failure wasn't possible, because that tends to be the reason why you don't do it. It's like, I'll probably fail. I'll either fail to provide for the family, I'll fail to get a job, I'll fail to be good at it, whatever it is. So when posed with that, if failure is impossible, what would you do? It was a completely liberating idea.
Absolutely.
Fail. Or fear.
Yeah.
No, which one is it? Fail?
I think it's the fear of
Failing.
the possibility of failing.
Okay.
Yep. And it took her a couple times of coming back to that sign to really realize how much she was limiting herself because of what she thought she would fail at. And so when you think about it, if you could take the possibility of failure off the table, what would you do? And it got me. Now I end up doing exactly the same thing I was doing before. I went for the same type of a job, so it didn't change my path. But it got me to think differently of am I limiting myself on the things that I'm afraid to do because I would fail?
So what would it be?
I don't know if I know yet.
Yeah.
I don't know if I know yet. I think I'm still discovering what it could be.
No, that's probably what makes you an interesting human.
Yeah.
I mean, I think people that end up deciding this is what I'm going to be forever and ever and ever. I don't know. I sometimes don't find those folks to be terribly interesting because there's no discovery, there's no exploration, there's no adventure. It's just kind of like, this is what I do,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, I agree. But I mean, I think I feel like we are trained, going back to, I think, something what you were saying, Elton, right? We're trained or programmed that we should know. Right, so it's kind of it's kind of the imposter syndrome, right? Where you're like, when are they going to figure out that I don't know what the hell I'm doing? And so, I think that instills a little bit of that fear, right, or that fear of failure. Because I think we are kind of groomed to always look and appear as though we actually have our shit together, right? Think about it, right?
Yeah.
We're in new roles, right? You and me are new roles. You're going through some transition and into a new role eventually. And I mean, I think it's the same. I mean, I think that's what I took from this last experience that I just had, that where I'm at now. It's like, okay, if I fail, I fail. And I think it's the, going back to what you were talking about, is it if failure was off the table, or is it more about getting comfortable with failure and that failure is okay?
Good question. I think that those are two very different questions.
And I think it depends on the person and where they are, right?
I would agree. I guess my challenge to that would be does it matter who the person is? And is that how it should be?
Well, I mean, it likely depends on how much they have to lose.
So
That's
put
fair.
it in the framework of your kids, who we all want better for than us. Is it about wanting them to not be afraid of failure? I want my kids to be comfortable trying anything that's safe anyway.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So you don't get dinged in life for failing. You miss out when you don't try things, right?
Right. Yep.
So.
Yeah.
So this week I'm going for Blade and Bow. So I came across Blade and Bow in the Garden and Gun magazine, which I started subscribing to when we moved down here. It was recommended as a good way to get to know the South and culture and recipes, and I saw this ad for Blade and Bow, and it was a pretty decent article around it. And interestingly, this is a brand that's been around a couple times. So it was started in 1935 and ran its course, was sold. Guinness owned it back in the late 80s, early 90s.
Really?
Yep. And then it went away. And from what I can see, the Stitzel Weller is the original distillery. They're still around as a location, so they barrel it there, but it's produced somewhere else. And a little bit background on Stitzel Weller is that was where the original Pappy was produced.
Nice.
So the original producer of Pappy was Stitzel. In 95, I believe, Diageo purchased Blade and Bow and kind of removed it from the being distilled in Stitzelweller, and now they're kind of distilling it a few other places. They'll barrel it and let it sit in Stitzel, but it's unknown, and Diageo won't let you know. They won't release where they distill it or what the mix is. So while tonight we went through and talked about all the different mixes of corn and rye and barley in the mash, this one is not released. They do have two types. They have this straight whiskey we have here, the straight bourbon, and then they have a 22-year, which is interesting because it's only been around since 2015 in its latest generation. So no one's really quite sure how they pull off a 6-year, never mind a 22.
I'm no mathematician.
Unless there is some dog years. But it's interesting. What they do is there's this process which I just learned about. It is a way that they're able to keep some of the original, the last remaining bits of the Stitzelweller distillery. They use this, it's called a Solera aging process. And how it works is they essentially stack barrels in a pyramid. And as they pour more of the new batch into the barrels, some of the old batch pours down to the barrels below. So it's a network and a series of barrels. So you always have some remaining bit of the original.
The original.
So I believe Diageo came in and bought whatever barrels were left of the original Stitzelweller, and set up this process so that any new distilling that's happening, they're pouring new batch into old batch. And what it does, it just continues to trickle down. So your top barrel feeds the second row feeds the third, all the way down until you hit the last barrel, and that's when they start taking, the bottling is off of the bottom barrels.
Do you know how many high they stacked it?
I don't know.
This would be fascinating to see. Wouldn't it?
I would love to see it and see if it's operationally.
And it's in Louisiana, you said?
It is in Louisville.
Louisville.
Yep.
When there's a Louisiana, I was like, that's interesting.
I could have said that. It's in Louisville.
Okay.
Louisville. And what's neat is this idea that it's also called fraction blending. So if you think about it, you're just constantly not watering it down, but adding and diluting the original barrel with new. So I guess everything is mixed. It's a continuous mix. So they've got a 22-year, and then the one that we're going to taste tonight is a 6-year. 22 is very hard to find.
Okay.
So they've created this cachet behind it. And the name Blade and Bow comes from the naming structure of a key. So originally on Stitzelweller, in the distillery itself, they had 5 keys. Mm-hmm. And those 5 keys they left hanging on the door. So any employee could grab a key and open any of the 5 different rooms. The shaft of a key and the kind of the working end, the smart end, is called the blade. And then the handle is the bow. And it's more of the decorative piece. And they say that the legend is that the 5 keys represent the 5 steps to crafting bourbon: grains, yeast, fermentation, distillation, and aging. The bottle is a 6-sided bottle. 5 sides are those, and you can see it, Kurt, if you look at the sides. Each key is represented on the bottom of the bottle, talking about the 5 stages of the process. And the 6th side is left for labeling. So it's an interesting story about that, and they do have a club that if you collect all 5 keys, so there are 5 different keys, and I know that you brought a bottle.
Oh, I did bring a bottle.
You want to grab that and we'll see?
Sure.
But if you collect all 5 keys and you are able to prove that you have all 5 keys, they will send you a commemorative token of their appreciation. I don't know if it's a bottle of the 22-year or not.
Ooh. We have 2 different keys.
We have 2 different keys? Fantastic.
We're 40% of the way there.
I like it. Making
Road trip.
progress.
You are a mathematician.
Making progress. So this is a really interesting interesting
mission.
story here. It's a lot of legacy, and they say it's a tribute to the original Stitzer Weller distillery, even though it's not as functioning as it used to be. It's available for tours, so you can tour it, and they do have a small still on site to do maybe some custom craft blends. But
Cool.
yeah, it's pretty neat. So
Let's try it.
let's try it.
They really committed to the 5-key theme.
Yeah.
So from a branding perspective, you got to love the consistency.
Gotta love
right?
it. Yeah.
Either that or they just spun a hell of a story about it.
Well, whatever works, right?
All right, my first
I
impression
know I like
is,
this one because I have a proof of it on my forehead. So
Oh, is this one? Okay.
this
was
was
the
it.
one?
Yeah,
This is
this
the one
was
that
the one.
contributed.
Yeah.
Is it the shape of a key? The scar.
Hey,
That'd be
I
very
could go
cool.
with that. Would that not be cool?
We can fix that.
Yeah. No. Let's
Just
not.
add a couple notches.
Let's not.
Again, it's another smooth. We don't know what the blend is. They won't. Diageo hasn't revealed what the blend of corn to rye to barley is, but I would say it's probably high on the corn. It's got a good, sweet, smooth taste to it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm getting a little less of the bite than I got in Clyde May.
In Clyde May.
It's funny. I think it had more bite than Clyde May. A little bit less than the
Okay.
1792. I would have guessed the rye level is similar to the 1792.
You have a sensitive tongue.
I'm sensitive all around.
But I like it. I think that this would be a good. It's a good tasting bourbon. It's got a great story if you're waxing nostalgia or want to, I guess, impress anyone with the dangling charm of a key on a
I
bottle.
love the key idea. I mean, I think that's pretty cool.
It is pretty
Yeah.
unique. I don't remember buying when I bought this if the key was sealed to the side of the bottle, meaning.
I
think
don't
so. I
think
they
it
were
is.
saying
I
that.
don't. Yeah, I don't think it is because the bottle that I got as a gift.
Okay.
And I remember the bottle being like this down around the neck of the.
So if you went in and you were comparing keys, you could certainly seek out the other.
You could seek
3
out.
keys.
I'm going to
Okay.
guess that one of them is really hard to find.
Probably. What are your thoughts, Alton?
Well, now we have a mission.
Definitely a little more bite for me. Not as smooth. It sits heavy on the tongue and lingers a little more than I generally prefer. So of the 3, this is probably lower on the list for me tonight.
Okay.
I could tell you after about 5 of these, it gets really good.
Oh, I'm sure, yeah. 5 of most things. really
5 of
do.
most things gets
Yeah.
really good.
Yeah, well, I mean, Kurt, what do you think? Similar to the 1792 or closer to Clyde May?
Yeah,
to
for
you?
me, it sits kind of in between. Like
Yeah.
I think Clyde Mays was probably the smoothest for me tonight.
Okay.
I feel like the 1792 actually had a little bit more of a bite for me than the Blade and Bow.
Okay.
But I'm a fan of Blade and Bow, so
It's,
Yeah.
yeah,
I may be a little partial.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah.
I like it.
Do you know what it is? A bottle?
I want to say it's around 40, 45, if my
Okay.
memory serves. Does that
Okay.
feel
It seems about right.
about right
I
to
don't know
you?
if I've ever actually bought it, but I've seen it.
Yeah, I'll have to check that out. But I think it's in that range. It wasn't. It was just pricey enough for you to hope that it's a really good bourbon.
Yeah.
It wasn't cheap enough that you just walk right past it and think that it was just a marketing scheme with a key. It had a pretty good, a lot of good write-ups too.
It's actually about $54.
Is it
56?
Okay, all right. So it's it's up there.
Yeah, it is.
It's up there.
Yeah,
And
this one's a good for that. It's a good gift. I mean, you said you got it as a gift, but like for my nephew
Yeah,
who likes bourbon, this was a good choice. Cool name, like you said, a little bit unique with the ornament with it.
Yep.
So definitely a good gift. Middle price point, mid-50s.
yep.
Yeah.
Not bad.
I can't say mine was really a gift. It was more I was at a friend's place and they're like, "Hey, we got this like bottle of bourbon. I don't know what it is, but if you want it, I know you like
You're like,
bourbon."
"Fine."
I'm like, "Sure, I'll take it." Okay.
Again. It doesn't mean you have to drink 5 glasses for 5 keys
I know. It was just one of those nights.
in one night.
Yeah.
All right. Well, 5 keys is interesting because it rhymes with 5 P's, and I
Peas.
think that we're up to 5 P's. Dave, you've been keeping track of all this. Are we at 5 P's so far? In keeping with the 5 keys, like where were they? I can think of a few of them, but remind us what they are.
Personal, professional, and
Parenting.
parenting. Why would we blow parenting up into family?
Because we want to do 3 P's.
Dear God.
That's a P word for family.
That'd be a great T-shirt.
It's family. It's PH.
Give me the 3
PH.
P's.
PH.
That's
Yeah.
right. Family. PH.
There you go. That's what it
AMILY.
is. That's
Done.
what it is.
Can we spell it with an I on the end versus Y?
However the hell you want to spell it, Kurt.
Thank you.
It is all about you.
Thank you.
All right. I just think, yes, parenting is very important, but also, families and spouses and parents and siblings and all that
Yep.
stuff too. It's good dialogue and conversation and
I
support.
know, I agree.
And support for all that stuff too.
I agree.
Yeah.
I mean,
So-
I feel like some of that's personal, but
Could be.
it doesn't matter.
All right.
Doesn't matter.
Okay. I mean, personal could be like, hey guys, I've got my colonoscopy next week. I mean, that's, right?
That's why you're so giddy.
No. Actually, I was supposed to get it like 6 months ago, and I've been putting it off. So,
Do not do that.
oh God, here we go.
Road trip.
Captain Polyp.
Road trip.
We've got Captain Polyp over here.
Let You're invited this
let
time.
us help you. Yeah, right. I'm invited. That's the shit I get invited to. No pun intended. So
Moon River.
that's Elton's job.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
He's much better at it.
No, I mean, I think. Listen, it's I think the personal for me is what we deal with. One as men, but just also in our roles and also just in life in general as individuals. The parenting is really all about the struggles and the great things that we go through as parents, right?
Yep.
And then professional is just we've all gone through a lot of change and a lot of transition in the last year and a half, 2 years, relative to our professional careers, right? And
Yep.
certainly not in places that we thought we were going to be, but a lot of learning there, right? And I think there's a lot of that happening out there where guys like us don't have a place to go or
Yep.
somebody to reach out to, or
and
Right.
talk about the stuff that we're
Right.
all similarly struggling with or going through, or the challenges we're facing. And there were 2 back-to-back guys our age, back-to-back suicides. And that's when I reached out to you guys.
That's
to
right,
say,
you
That's
"Hey,
right.
Listen,
That's right.
Let's make sure that we're all talking about this stuff, because from the street, those guys had everything going.
they had everything going. That's
and,
right.
and there's more and more guys around us that we have no idea what they're going through.
Yep.
And to know that there's someone there that you can call out and go, hey, I need you to have my back. I need to just run something by you. I need
Yep.
another set of eyes on this. I need another brain on it. I need someone to talk me into it, out of it, whatever it is.
Down from it.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yep.
Well, dudes just don't talk.
No.
I was going to say we're supposed to be strong and able to figure things out on our own.
Right.
Yep.
And yeah, we can, but why?
Right.
I mean,
Yep. And so for me, the chance to get together with you guys at least once a month, and it's turned into more than once a month, which has been a blast,
yeah.
has just brought the bond closer so that the shorthand is much faster. You can say, what do you think about this?
Yeah.
I know that we've talked to each other through different career advice, different opportunities or challenges, and and
Or
it's
heads up on really bad creative.
yeah, that's what it's about. So it's nice to know that there's guys in your corner you can reach out to, run an idea by, or ask for advice, or say, tell me the 3 things why I should get excited about this thing that's not exciting me, or tell me, what did you do when you were in this situation? Because we've all been there.
Yep.
All right. Well, we've come to that part of the show.
Last call.
Last call.
Last call.
All right, Alton, you're up. You get
All
tonight's last call.
tonight's last call.
Wanna spin the wheel?
Spin the wheel.
You lose
All
your
right.
turn.
What do we have, Derek?
We landed on.
All right. So tonight we have hotel lobby, last call. Your company CEO's there. Doesn't have his wallet, and he says, "I'll have what you're having." So what do you go with? Do you go with the Blade and Bow, the special edition foolproof 1792, or the Clyde May?
That's a great scenario.
Derek,
That
where
is
do
a
you
great
go?
scenario. If I want, so I'll assume that the company CEO is familiar with bourbon. So I'm starting from that perspective.
Okay, fair enough.
Maybe there's a quick little flavor profile. I think these are all in the same range in my mind. If I want a intellectual conversation with the CEO, with he or she, I'm going with Blade and Bow. But if I want to chum along with the CEO, I'm gonna go Clyde Mays.
Yeah.
If I see these three bottles on the shelf, I'm gonna bring out the Clyde Mays and go deeper into the story, and see if I can find out maybe what the CEO's original path was, and if they followed their passion or if it was just a job. I think it's a great conversation piece, and just the knowledge that we brought tonight about what we learned about these three brands is enough to give you any real good conversation,
Yep.
good conversation starters if you want to talk about tradition or symbolism for Blade and Bow. If you want to talk about, following your passion, vocation, I'm going Clyde Mays.
Very good.
Kurt?
I'm probably going to come at it from a different angle, and I'm a little bit more cynical.
No.
Who are you?
So, do I like the CEO? I think, that aside, I'm actually just kind of kidding on that one.
Yeah,
but
he signs your paycheck. Let's
that's
start
right.
with that.
Yeah,
First and
I know.
foremost.
No. I get that. So, I'm probably going to go with Blade and Bow because I think what I would try to do is, I think kind of what you were hinting on, but I would probably bring in the conversation around the 5 keys, right? And maybe get into a conversation with that person about like, what are the 5 keys to success and what does success mean? And really try to push on them more of leaning into like the 4 Ps or the 5 Ps, whatever it is we have right now. But starting off on the business side, but then really kind of transitioning that conversation over to like what that actually really means and what are the keys to success. So I would go Blade and Bow, partially one because it's my favorite. And,
Yeah.
but also I just think it'd be an easy way to transition into some kind of conversation like that. So Blade and Bow,
Good choice.
B&B.
I would go with the same.
Elton, what do you think?
Oh, okay. Yeah. Thank you.
I forgot your name there for a second.
Yeah, me too. How
I'm
many
going
of
to
those
call
have
you Red
had?
Microphone
Yeah.
Guy.
How many of those have you had over there? So for me, yeah, I would also go Blade and Bow. Similar reason, not exactly the same, but the way the story went with they actually had the 5 keys physically present in the original location.
Yep.
Interesting that became the moniker that people pulled away from a huge company. I'm assuming it was a huge. So, question I would have for the CEO to kind of explore is, from their perspective, what would be the artifacts of our company?
I like it.
In 20 years, people look back
Yeah.
here and said 5 keys were significant, maybe because it gave everybody access to the building and it wasn't hidden. From our perspective, on a company basis, not necessarily a personal level, what would be the things that they think about, people recall about our company?
Yeah, what's hanging on the front door?
That's hanging on the front door, and
Yeah.
what people are going to talk about when you don't know they're even talking about it.
Yeah.
So,
That's
and plus,
cool.
it's a great pour. Great
It is a
Yeah.
great pour. I
don't
mean,
think-
I thought, listen, I think Blade and Bow all around for me is like, you hinted to the brand play.
Yeah.
But I think there's, whether it's a little gratuitous or not, I think the whole kind of key concept and the representation of the key, the bottle having 5 sides, the 6th side being about all the label. I just think the whole package is really good. Not to mention it tastes pretty damn good.
Yeah, I totally agree. And last but not least, David.
David.
All right, everybody. Looks like we've hit the end of the trail. Enjoyed spending time with everybody here and tasting some good bourbons. And we look forward to having everybody join us for the next episode. Gentlemen, bourbon on.
Bourbon on.